Stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
Oh,
guy.
stop it.
Is that your solution, every
Hold it. No, sit down. Oh, you're a clown now. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond?
Hold it. If
Hold
we
on.
can't, no,
This is
I have the
what he
mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough of contempt for Congress. Let's not
I don't
make
like
it worse.
thugs and
You-
bullies.
You have,
And that's
you
what-
have,
I don't like you, because you
Hold
just
it.
described yourself.
hold it.
Listen to that. Sounds important, right? Sounds like government in action. That was actually audio from a Senate oversight hearing. Bad audio, but a Senate oversight hearing. Here's the question. Is anything actually getting done? Welcome back to Ethos Trek. I'm Sarah. Today, we're talking about something that should be basic civics, but has become desperately urgent. The difference between policy and politics. And yes, I said should be basic. Because here's the reality. Many of our elected officials either don't know the difference or they're counting on you not knowing the difference. Let's fix that. Because democracy dies in the dark, but it also dies in the confusion. Let's start simple. Policy is what government does. It's the substance, the actual rules, regulations, programs, and laws that affect your daily life. Healthcare policy determines whether you can afford insulin. Tax policy determines how much of your paycheck you keep. Education policy determines what resources your kid's school has. Infrastructure policy determines whether that bridge you drive over every day is actually safe to drive over. Policy is about outcomes. Does this law make things better or worse? Does this regulation protect people or harm them? Does this program work? Politics, on the other hand, is the process of gaining and exercising power. It's coalition building, messaging, campaigns, winning elections, managing public opinion, negotiating with rivals. Politics is about positioning. Who gets credit? Who gains leverage? What plays well with the base? What helps us win the next election? Now here's the critical part. Both are necessary. You can't govern without politics. You need coalitions. You need to win elections. You need public support. Politics is how we navigate disagreement in a democracy without violence. But politics should be the vehicle for policy, not the substitute for it. And that's where we've gone catastrophically wrong. The Constitution is crystal clear about this. Article 1 does not grant Congress the power to perform political theater. It grants them the power to, quote, establish post offices, unquote, quote, regulate commerce, unquote, quote, provide for the common defense and general welfare, unquote. These are policy functions, concrete powers to address concrete problems. Every member of Congress takes this oath, quote, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office, unquote. Quote, faithfully discharge the duties of the office, unquote. Not faithfully perform for the cameras, not faithfully attack my opponents. Faithfully discharge the duties, the policy-making responsibilities. The preamble lists our government's purposes. Quote, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Unquote. Notice what's not on that list? Winning elections, generating viral content, owning the libs, or owning the cons. So here's your first critical thinking question. When you evaluate your representatives, are you asking whether they're advancing the preamble's goals or just whether they're on your team? So how did we end up with politics consuming policy instead of serving it? I think there are 4 key factors to this. The first is the permanent campaign. Elections used to have seasons. You'd campaign for a few months, then govern for the rest of your term. Now campaigning never stops. The next election cycle begins the day after the last one ends. This means every vote, every statement, every committee hearing is evaluated through the lens of, how does this affect my re-election chances? Policy questions become secondary to political ones. Instead of asking, will this law work? Representatives ask, will this vote hurt me with my base? Second factor, safe seats and gerrymandering. Thanks to gerrymandering, most congressional districts are, quote-unquote, safe for one party. In a safe red district, the Republican can't lose to a Democrat. In a safe blue district, the Democrat can't lose to a Republican. That means the real threat to incumbents comes from primary challenges, from their own party's most extreme wing. So the incentive isn't to legislate effectively. It's to perform ideological purity, to be the loudest, the most combative, the most uncompromising. Compromise, which is essential for policymaking in a diverse democracy, becomes politically dangerous. Third, the media ecosystem rewards conflict. Congressional hearings that used to be policy deliberations are now performance art. Why? Because outrage clips go viral. Thoughtful policy analysis does not. A 3-minute video of someone quote-unquote destroying a witness gets millions of views. A 3-hour markup session on appropriations details gets crickets. So, members optimize for the viral moment, not the substantive outcome. Fourth, voters have been trained wrong. Here's the hard part. We've been trained to consume politics as entertainment rather than governance as responsibility. We watch the drama. We pick teams. We celebrate owns and clapbacks. Meanwhile, actual policy, the stuff that determines whether we can afford rent or health care, gets almost no attention until it's too late. There are consequences. Here's what happens when politics replaces policy. Government stops working. We lurch from one near shutdown to another because passing a budget, basic governance, becomes a political hostage situation. Infrastructure crumbles because fixing roads doesn't generate campaign contributions like culture war fights do. People suffer because addressing their actual needs is less politically rewarding than performing outrage. And then we wonder why people lose faith in democracy. Second critical thinking question. Look at the political content you consume. News, social media, podcasts. What percentage focuses on policy substance versus political drama? And what does that tell you about what you're being trained to care about? So, how do you tell the difference between policy and politics? Here are some diagnostic questions that might help. Question 1. Does this change anything in the real world? If your representative just gave a fiery speech but hasn't introduced or co-sponsored legislation to actually address the issue, that's politics without policy. If they voted against a bill but can't explain what alternative policy would better solve the problem, that's politics without policy. Question 2. Can they explain the substance? Policy requires detail. If your representative can talk at length about the politics of an issue, who's to blame, who's winning, what this means for elections, but can't explain how their proposal would actually work, that's a red flag. You might want to ask, what's the implementation mechanism? How is it funded? Who's responsible for enforcement? What are the metrics for success? If they can't answer those questions, they're not doing policy. Question 3. Are they seeking solutions or seeking enemies? Policy making requires negotiation and compromise. If your representative treats every issue as an opportunity to attack opponents rather than solve problems, they're prioritizing politics over policy. Question 4. Do they talk about trade-offs? Real policy involves trade-offs. Every decision has costs, benefits, and unintended consequences. If someone promises simple solutions to complex problems or claims their preferred policy has no downsides, they're selling politics, not serious policy. Question 5. Can they work with people they disagree with? In our constitutional system, you can't pass laws without building coalitions. If your representative has never co-sponsored legislation with someone from the other party, they're not serious about policy. Third critical thinking question. Apply these 5 questions to your own representatives right now. Based on their recent actions and statements, are they doing policy or just politics? There's a deeper problem. Here's what makes this really dangerous. When politics replaces policy, democracy becomes simply tribalism with voting. Instead of competing ideas about how to solve problems, you get competing teams fighting for dominance. Instead of citizens evaluating governance, you get fans cheering for their side. And when governance fails, which it will, when it's subordinated to political theater, people lose faith not just in their representatives, but in democracy itself. That's how democracies die, not in coups or revolutions, but in the slow strangulation of actual governing. So what can we do about it? Well, here's 5 concrete actions you could do. Action 1. Change your information diet. Stop consuming political content that's purely about drama, racehorses, and tribal warfare. Start following policy-focused sources. Follow your representatives' actual legislative work on congress.gov. Read the bills. Look at their committee activity. Check their voting records against their campaign promises. Make policy substance at least 70% of your political media consumption. Action 2. Ask policy questions. When you contact your representatives, don't ask political questions like, "Why won't you stand up to the other side?" Ask policy questions. What specific legislation have you introduced to address this problem? How would your proposal be implemented? What are the potential unintended consequences? Who have you been working with across the aisle? Force them to talk substance, not spin. Action 3. Reward substance over performance. When representatives do serious policy work, especially bipartisan policy work, support them. Share their substantive content. Donate to their campaigns if you can. Vote for them in primaries. Stop rewarding the performers and start rewarding the legislators. Action 4. Vote in primaries. Most general elections are decided in the primaries, especially in gerrymandered districts. Primary voters tend to be more ideologically extreme, which rewards political performance over policy substance. If moderate voters started showing up to primaries, the incentive structure would change overnight. Action 5. Demand constitutional education. Most Americans can't name their representative, don't know how bills become laws, and have never read the Constitution. You can't hold representatives accountable for constitutional duties you don't understand. Support civics education. Learn the Constitution. Teach your kids how government actually works. Final critical thinking? Here's the last question. If you implemented these 5 actions starting this week, how would that change your relationship to governance? And if enough people did the same, how would that change American democracy? Politics is the vehicle. Policy is the destination. We need both, but we cannot let the vehicle become more important than where we're trying to go. Our representatives took an oath to faithfully discharge the duties of their office. Those duties are policy duties, making laws that advance justice, tranquility, defense, welfare, and liberty. It's time to hold them to that oath, and it's time to hold ourselves to the responsibility that comes with citizenship in a democracy. Check your representatives' legislative pages this week. Ask them a policy question. Demand substance over performance. Now, I totally understand reading legislation can be eye-crossingly boring, and politicians have gotten into the habit of writing in such a way that they take 1,000 pages to convey something that really only needed about 5 pages. Again, politics oozing into policy. If there's something you would like me to explore further in a future video, leave it in the comments below or send an email. My email address is on the channel description box. Policy is important. So is democracy. Because democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's a participation requirement. This is Ethos Trek, and I'm Sarah. Stay engaged, stay critical, and stay constitutional. I'll be back in a few days. If you like this content, please poke that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. Leave a comment. If there's someone you think would enjoy this content, please share. If you would like either the Policy versus Politics checklist or the action booklet from 31 pages video, please drop me an email. The address is in the channel description box. If you're watching this on the Tube of Views, these are relevant videos the algorithm thought you might enjoy. Thank you.